New chapter. Thinking Mind. The process of thinking is a simple one. It is a swing of the cosmic pendulum from the stability of mind substance to apparent instability, and back again to stability. The registration of this effect in the ocean of universal mind is contained within the form of an elongated sphere, and all its variability and complexity may be read upon two exactly opposite spiral waves within two halves of that sphere. Light, heat, electricity, magnetism, form, crystallization, sound, mass, the elements and compounds of elements, time, space, attraction, gravitation, force, energy, inertia, sex, life, death, sleep, memory, the souls of all things, and the complex ideas of all things, in fact, all that man can comprehend of this universe, can be spelled out in their beginnings on these two opposing spiral waves within one sphere, and on through to their endings in 9 other increasingly larger, though flattened, spheres, or ellipsoids. These two opposing spiral waves within one sphere represent the entire simple process of thinking, but not the entire variability of the effect of thinking. They represent the beginning or highest octave in the cycle of thinking, of which there are 10. The simple process of thinking is repeated exactly in the 10 octaves, but with periodic variability and complexity of registered effect. All variability and complexity of registered effect is orderly in variation and complication, and thus are all levels comprehensible to that man who has knowledge of the cause of those effects. Everywhere throughout its entirety, the mind substance is in constant agitation, undergoing the orderly process of thinking. The force called thinking, which impels mind into concentration and decentration in sequence, is the only energy of the universe. There is no other energy. The universe is mind only. The universe constant of energy registers in the substance of mind the illusions caused by the thinking of mind. Every microscopic point in divine mind becomes the center of the universe of mind, with its first impulse of the act of thinking, for with this first impulse is form born into a universe which is without form. From that center, the explosive, reactive, genero-radiative, electromagnetic disturbance, which constitutes the process of thinking, reproduces itself throughout the entirety of the universe at incomprehensible speed in waves of creating light units, which waves return again to that exact center. Thinking is an action followed by a reaction of that action. The action of thinking constitutes a series of events in sequence. The intervals between events in sequence constitute that effect of motion called time. Without a sequence of events, time could not be, for there would be nothing to mark time. Time begins with the action of thinking. It is an effect which appears with motion in opposition and disappears into motion in inertia. The events in sequence which give birth to that appearance called time are the opposing pulsations of generative and radiative light. These opposing pulsations give dimension and form to that which man calls life. To man there is no life without form. Form and dimension are fleeting. Life is eternal. Life is merely the action of thinking, and thinking is as eternal as the thinking substance of mind is eternal. Universal thinking is rhythmic thinking. The entire substance of universal mind is thinking in varying but orderly rhythmic meter. The meter of universal thinking is measurable in its orderliness throughout the entirety of the universal substance. The tempo of the cosmic rhythmic meter of thinking is absolute. All thinking is expressed in measurable and opposing impulses of opposing motion. All motion is action and reaction. Next chapter, the process of thinking. The action impulse and the reaction impulse of the thinking process are alternating between the apparent opposites known as generation and radiation. Generation and radiation are opposites which constitute the appearance of motion in opposition. Generation is the attractive, gravitative, positive electric force, and radiation is the repulsive, emanative, negative magnetic force. All motion, whether in opposition or in inertia, is in equilibrium. That is to say, the amount of energy expended in any two opposite swings of the cosmic pendulum is always quantitatively constant. The apparent variation is in the dimension of the two opposing swings and is not in the constant of energy. The amount of generative and radiative energies expended in the two opposing oscillations anywhere in the entire 10 octaves, when added together, total the same in the amount of energy expended. Motion in inertia is characterized by an absolute lack of what man calls valence, which is grabbing power or uniting power. All of the elements of matter in motion in opposition have this uniting power in varying degree or periodicity, just as they have periodicity in electromagnetic charge and other variations. Hence, a further reason for disassociating the inert gases or master tones from the elements. Opposing impulses of thinking are generated out of inertia and radiated back into equalization in inertia. These impulses are alternating between generation and radiation in a periodicity of preponderance, which periodicity is measurable by man in many ways. All matter is apparently evolving and devolving into the illusion of many substances of many dimensions. So-called solids of matter are variations of apparent states of motion registered in form, the ideal of thinking mind, and sustained in their appearance as solids of matter by electric preponderance over magnetism. The electric nature of matter, in its progressive periodicity and variation of electromagnetic charge, rotation of its light units and other periodicities, will be written down with more exactness when the process of thinking is more explicitly written down and charted. Suffice it here to say that thinking is the electrogenerative action and magneto-radiative reaction of mind. Thinking is a simple process of very complex effects, the sequence of which will be written in its proper place. The electromagnetic opposition of mind as expressed in the process of thinking is the source of all the energy of the universe. Thinking, then, is a process of generation of motion in variable opposition out of a state of maximum motion in non-variable inertia, and of radiation back again into that state.